Welcome to In Body, In Mind. Join us as we explore the world of alternative and complementary health, wellness and life experiences. In the realm of sound and music, few individuals resonate with the depth and authenticity that Julian Silburn brings to the stage. Known as a multi-instrumentalist, Julian's journey is not merely one for mastering musical sounds, but a profound exploration of culture, healing and connection. His story is woven into the rich fabric of the Australian landscape, particularly through his interactions with the indigenous heritage that has shaped his artistry. And with me today I have something that's very close to my heart, which is music. Music has basically been my entire life story. And with me I have Julian Silburn, who I actually met about maybe 13, 14 years ago, a long time ago. And he's never failed to amaze me because he'd come and visit Dave and I, and he would always have a new instrument, ancient instrument, of course, something you'd never seen before. And he would learn to play it to the max. I mean, the dedication he's given to music is and it's very inspiring. So I'd like to welcome you along, Julian, and thanks for doing this little podcast with me.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's good to be here with you, and yeah, look forward to conversation. Yeah.
So, how did it all begin?
How did it all begin?
A little summation of what enticed you. The first instrument you learned to play was a didge, right?
Actually, no, it was guitar.
Guitar.
I had a friend.
Band. Yeah.
I had a friend. Probably quite a few people know him, David Lawrence. I went to school with him, and anyway, he, was an amazing guitar player and piano player, and he was in a band and playing blues and rock and stuff like that. So yeah, it actually started with the guitar, really inspired by, classic kind of 60s rock and all of that good stuff. And so definitely the guitar started to be my first instrument. And then I had a trip away overseas when I was 18, and it's sort of, it was a big change in my life because I'd been pretty, bit of a party person and would, just be into the whole party scene.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that.
Just, Hollywood High School was a pretty rocking high school. And, and so, during this, I decided to go and work and live in Portugal, and not so much work, just go and live over there and start to get together a portfolio of video and film, and I wanted to get into film school. And it took me over there and surfing and hanging out, and I was still into this, going out and partying and all the stuff. And about halfway through that trip, through a combination of just huge amount of travel and a bit of sleep deprivation, things like that, I started to, become a bit unwell, and started to go into a sort of like a depression. And I didn't even really know what depression was. I was so confident when I left on my journey. And by the time I'd finished my trip, I was pretty down, and I'd lost a lot of confidence. I'd had a lot of, people break into my car and all sorts of bad things had happened. And I came back pretty shaken from that, and just decided I just wanted to get well. That was my main focus. And I started to, cleanse and get into natural foods, and then as I got better and I had more energy, I started to get into yoga and meditation. So this was around 19. And that's when things really started to open up for me on a spiritual level, as I'd sort of cleansed a lot of, energies and come back into feeling really well again. I was, just really getting high on, good living and good feeling after being so down. And and then just some big sort of openings in yoga, like starting to have, third eye activations and starting to see, have visions and things like that. And even before breathwork was a thing, I'd sort of come across some yogis who had taught me some more advanced kind of breathwork stuff, and that led to a huge awakening, spiritual awakening. And this particular vision that I had when my third eye opened and my whole, my subtle body started turning, was seeing all of creation in one giant spiral, this beautiful turquoise spiral, and just seeing every living being in this one spiral of creation. And it was such a powerful moment to realize that, being part of the web of life and actually seeing it in that way. And it was a quest. I really wanted to discover who I was spiritually. And around that same time, I would go down to Fremantle on the weekends, and I'd see these Aboriginal guys busking, Derek Nanup and Heath Bergenson, and really amazing didge players. And I just always admired, over that sort of couple of years, it was within probably a year, just going down to the bus, see the buskers, hear them playing, and they were just amazing didge players. And I finally just asked one of them, how do you even start to play the didgeridoo? And that was Heath. I asked that question. He said, go and see Derek. And so he worked at an Aboriginal gallery in Perth, and I'd sort of been reading Carlos Castaneda and, learning about shamanism, and it really, it was something that I took away when I was traveling, and learning about different energies and things like that. So I felt like I needed to prepare myself for that meeting with Derek. So I started to walk the land and connect with the land and meditate on the land, and just sort of get myself into a state where I could connect with him on a deep level. It wasn't even a conscious thing like I should do this, it was just
you didn't have anyone that you actually shared this with at the time. It was just you on your own. That would have been such a wow. I wouldn't, would you have felt lonely, or that would have been a pretty amazing experience, just to do something so randomly, which is not the way you were before. So you've actually just done this 360 turn, not knowing where you're heading.
Yeah.
And just walking, just connecting to nature, because you actually you intuitively felt that you needed to connect stronger to before you met Derek, right?
Yeah. And I was living in Fremantle at the time, and I just decided to just walk into Perth, like just go old school, just walk to Perth. And I had my dog with me, I think, and and just, and visit places that I was called to on the land, and in Carlos Castaneda, they talk about power places where you go and sit and you tune into the energy and you wait for a connection. And so I was doing that, and it was just like, because I was in quite an alternative state, because literally I had this luxury of time to be able to just be doing yoga, of course, this is before phones and, mobile phones and all the rest. So there was very little distractions. If you wanted to be totally undistracted, you could do it very easily. So, yeah, I remember just walking and all the cars were going past, but it was just like a sense, just tune out of that, just tune into the nature and don't even reference to the natural world, even though it's all around you. It was a very different
it's kind of like you're not labeling anything. You just,
yeah,
things are just as it is.
as it is.
Beautiful.
And yeah, and this was sort of after I'd had these dreams with indigenous people, and there was, that sort of thing of walking the land and doing that. It was very much on the back of having these dreams, because I'd opened myself up to spirit. I wanted to discover myself as a spiritual being, and learning things. And luckily, I, lived in a family where there were a lot of spiritual books, talking about the subtle body, talking about visions, talking about all sorts of things. Like my mum, particularly through one of her mentors, had a lot of spiritual resources. So I was hungry for that. So I was reading things and learning things and discovering things. But I had some very significant dreams with indigenous people, and one particularly that I feel to share that would be useful is this one dream. I just found myself standing by a river, and I was looking around. It was as real as this dimension, and it was, some beautiful big trees and beautiful flowing river, and there was this big hollowed tree that had fallen sort of across the river, and it was sort of into the river but also went onto the land. It was a giant tree and it was all hollowed out, and I looked down and I could see this Aboriginal family just kind of camped there in the hollow of this giant tree. And I sort of looked at them and they looked at me, and this young Indigenous man, he slid this really long didge down to me, and he picked it up and he played it and then put it down, and then it was so long that I picked it up, so maybe 15, 20 foot long didge, and I picked up the other end and played back to him, and then I put it down, and then he walked from the family group towards me, and he just took me by the hand, and we both walked into the river and started swimming, and
Gee, that's an incredible dream.
swimming deeper and deeper and deeper, and yeah, and
Water signifies consciousness, doesn't it?
at
Yeah.
a point I just thought, wow, like how can I breathe down here? Like that's when the conscious mind came in and I woke up.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a few others, but it was almost every night I was having these dreams and of connection. And so when I started to just walk the land, I felt like this was a carrier over from that dream world into this waking world.
Mm.
And so I felt like the ancestors were guiding me, or I felt part of that energy somehow. And yeah, and anyway, so that's the sort of the spirit energy of how I met Derek. And then he showed me the basics of how to play and getting the first sound, getting the drone sound. And I'd go away, and I think I had a bit of PVC that I didn't have a real didge. And so then I started trying, and and then I'd go back and see Derek again, and I'd say, oh, but how do you do this and how do you do that? And
That's beautiful, yeah.
he'd say to me, he just showed me what he was doing. And this is what I've come to learn with Indigenous people is they don't break things down in the same way. I mean, they can, but in the old way, it's more just you watch, you observe, and you try.
Yeah.
And that's how you learn things, is through observation and being there. And so he just pretty much said to me, practice, just lots of practice. And I went, okay, that's all he's giving me. That's what I'm going to do. So I just immerse myself in it for hours.
How old were you at this stage? Only like in your early 20s then, were you?
I was 19.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah. And I was working for the Wilderness Society as a volunteer and a campaigner. Really bad unemployment at that time. I just couldn't find work. It was really bad. So I just decided to volunteer for the Wilderness Society, and I met this guy Paddy, who's a bit of a legend. He is a legend. He's played a huge role in campaigning for our southwest forests. And Paddy had been up in Kununurra, and he'd bought a didge from Kununurra, and he had it. And I saw this didge one day, and I said, oh, do you mind if I, try that? Of course, I was so excited. And so I, had to go on a real didge,
First time, yeah.
And well, I did when I was with Derek at that gallery. Anyway, so I started playing this didge, and he said, "Oh, you could take it home and take it home, in the evening." So I'd get an Oki strap and strap it to my bike, and ride home at the end of the day and practice and practice and practice, and and then I started to really want to get the circular breathing. And so I started asking around, how to get the breathing, and I got the tip off the straw in the glass of water, try and keep the bubbles going. And I started to actually understand it, and then I got got the circular breathing.
Wow! And that's not an easy task. I know that.
And once I got,
and even the breathing. I mean, the breathing, from what I've learned through breath work, but also through Dave, because you taught Ingie Dave how to play the didge, and he can still. I remember what he said to me, because he actually, because your body's not used to doing this type of breath. So he said to me that what he went through was he felt like he was drowning. That's what he felt. And tears were rolling down from his eyes, because the body did not want to breathe like that. And I thought, well, that would be so powerful to experience that. So does everyone actually experiences this type of feeling when they do circular breathing?
No, not that I've come across. I mean, that may have been some sort of past life memory, or I'm not sure.
Well, he also did mention that you took him to a place in the river, where he was sitting, just the two of you, and this bird just came out of the sky right in front of you and just dove in, picked up a fish, and off it went. Like all these things happened while you were both sitting there. So he had an amazing journey with you in that moment,
The osprey, and then we had some other birds that it felt like the ancestral energies were really very strongly present that day. So the way I sort of once I achieved the circular breathing, every time I went on it, it was like going into another space, a very place. It was like a mysterious place, but a place that felt so good. So I wanted to spend a lot of time in that feeling and that place. And Yeah, and so I, as I built it up and could play for longer and longer, I'd come out of it and I'd put the didge down, and then I'd go, I'm going back in there. Like that is just,
Okay. Well, when you think about it, you would have been in another, because you're not breathing the same way as we are right now. You're actually really inside of yourself because that breath work is totally inner. You can't think of anything outside of that.
yeah,
And then you're creating a vibration and a frequency at the same time. So it'd be pretty powerful,
yeah,
and yeah, you'd want to stay there, wouldn't you? And I know how amazing you are at playing that didge. But you also spent some time in Arnhem Land, didn't you? I mean, that would have, I mean, how many people get to do that? How special was that?
yeah. That was a really interesting one. Through meeting other didge players, I started to meet some other players, and I met a man, a Scottish guy called Kenneth Sands, and he met a German guy who had spent time in Arnhem Land, and he went up to Arnhem Land and had time up there learning from Mr. Guruwiwi. He's passed away now, and his family connection. And so I'd heard about, someone who had, had that experience or who was going up there, and it started to make me think, oh yeah, that would be really important thing to do. And I absolutely loved Yothi Indi and all of that real traditional Yidaki
Mm.
style, and yeah, I did a trip to Canada, and I was starting to jam with other world musicians, and this is when I was about 24. And towards the end of that trip, living in Canada and having a lot of musical experience, I thought I really need to go to the source of the Yidaki. I need to go to the roots. And so I decided to come back, and not sure how that was going to happen, but returned to Perth. And within about 3 months, I went to this exhibition in Fremantle at the passenger terminal, and it was featuring a lot of different artists, I think from around Australia. And there was an Aboriginal woman, Joanne Nungala, who was from Darwin and an amazing Central Desert artist. And she had some of her Central Desert work, and she had some Yidaki, didgeridoo, all painted up with bush tucker designs, and just absolutely stunning work. And I asked her, I said, is it okay to try one of these Yidakis? And she said, yeah, sure, go for it. And so I started playing, and it's like one of the most amazing Yidakis I'd ever played. So I just fully got in the zone, and
Mm.
I must have been playing for a really long time. And during that time, people were attracted by the sound, and I was just sort of in a different zone, but just going on the journey with it. And she started selling quite a lot of work,
It's
and
fantastic.
yeah,
It's just so good.
and and then she just said, do you think you'd like to come and live in the Northern Territory and make didgeridoos, and you'd be selling them, and I'll introduce you to the people of Arnhem Land? And I'm like, oh my God, 100%, I would love that. So that's what happened. They flew me up
It's
to,
just such a beautiful story, that really is. And
yeah,
how good that was for her to sell her produce, the things that she's made or the arts that she's produced. I mean, yeah. And then you get that in return. It's like, that's the way the world's meant to be, isn't it? We give and we give back. It's just a circle, isn't it? It's meant to be. but the Western world is kind of lost their little way of doing that now. We're trying to get it back together, but well, a lot of people are kind of waking up and starting to realise that it's not all about, you know, who you are and what you can do and what you've got. You know, there's a deeper story inside each one of us, and
Yeah, it's used in a variety of ways. It's used for ceremony, it's used for healing, it's used for informally for entertainment. It's many aspects, and yeah. So when I lived up in the Northern Territory and got to meet the people of Arnhem Land, then I would see them, you know, play. That it was the Middle Beach markets, so the sunset markets, and
mm,
they'd come down to the store where I was working. And play at sunset, and they'd sing their traditional songs, and it was just full of meaning, you know, to do with
mm,
their culture, and the type of didgeridoo playing up there is so different to what you typically hear in the southern areas. The way the Noongar people play and the way the people play in Arnhem Land is very different. So and the way the Kimberley people play is different. There's so many different regional differences in playing. But yeah, I didn't know about the didgeridoo as a healing instrument until I met an elder in the southwest, down in Denmark, Maxine Fumagalli, and she explained to me, in her opinion, the real purpose for the didgeridoo, and the most important use of it, in her opinion, was for healing. And I didn't know that. I knew that it was a very special sacred sound, but I didn't know it was actually used for healing. And she very much encouraged me to understand that and to use that as a healing instrument, which I started to do as a practice. So I think that's, yeah, it would have been around 96 that I started to, offer, it was just never done for money. It was just done, like we talked about before, as an exchange. I stayed in Hawaii for a month, and a family just said, you can stay here, if all I ask for is some healing. And then I started to get a sense of how impactful the didgeridoo is for healing by sharing it with people and just getting their feedback. And not that I was asking for feedback, but they were naturally explaining what was happening for them. And then later on, fast forward to around 2010, is when I first, in 97, I met some of the Guruwiwi family, and that some of his sons culturally adopted me as their brother. But it wasn't until 2010 at the Gama Festival that I actually met Mr. Guruwiwi. I can't say his name at this time. And he's considered like the ceremonial custodian, or a very, the master of the Yidaki and that family lineage, to do with that clan that's associated with the didgeridoo, that goes back, 1,000 or more years. It's hard to establish exactly how old it is, but it's definitely more than 1,000 years old in terms of it being used.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to actually, is there any other tribe in the world that uses a didgeridoo? I don't think there is. I think this is really something that belongs here, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. although I have heard that the Mayans used a type of instrument that was from the agave, which had, it was very much like a didgeridoo.
All right.
And the Tibetans have their horns, which they play like a didgeridoo. So there's other
Circular breathing in the horns as well, is there? Right. Okay.
Yeah, but when I was at Garma, I was just walking across the campground one day, and the Yadaki master and I just, there was no one around. It was just we had this collision course of meeting each other. It happened to be right sort of through the forest, and I realised, and I said hello, and he said hello, and I explained how I'd met his sons in Darwin, and he said, "Come meet your family," and went back to his camp, and I got to meet more of the family, and he was actually there doing Yidaki healings for mainly men who were unwell or were going through stuff, and so I had time just being watching again, being the observer, and I explained to him I was very interested in the healing side of things. And I had this incredible opportunity to just watch and observe the way he did healings with people. And often it's played right into the heart center. So the person will hold the yidaki, and he'll play directly into your heart center.
Yeah, well, as we both know, sound is a relatively, it's an important thing to all humans, because it's no different. Even our talking, the way we say things, will send a message internally into us. You know that when you get angry, you're going to, that sound that you make when you're angry, when you're yelling at someone, is not a good internal feeling. And you also know what it's like when you see a little puppy and there's all this unconditional love and this picking up. It's like, whoa, I want one of these. You know what I mean? There's all that. And we go, and it's all to do with the sound and how we look at the world and ourselves. Our sound is almost like a telephone line into consciousness.
Yeah.
So, what we say is so important, and how we say it is so important. But then the sound, because it's a vibration, we're all energy beings, and we all have a frequency. And of course, I came across something about 20 years ago, and I really considered it at the time. So it's a long time ago. It might be a little bit longer than that, where I came across a German guy who'd invented a frequency, just one note. Mm-hmm. And the person, it would destroy breast cancer tumors. So the person had put the headphones on for a certain amount of time per day for so long, not for a hell of a long time, and certainly not for a long time sitting there with a headphone on. And this one frequency would play, and apparently it used to just get rid of the actual tumors. And that was that long ago. And, since then, coming across you and then Dave playing Didge, and being a musician myself, I know that I sang because it was my way of expressing my feelings.
Yeah.
And of course, my message was of love. When I'm on stage, I've got nothing but love feelings inside of me, and it's a way of expressing it without getting too personal. I guess because you're far away from them, but it's a realization, and since then, over the last quite a few years now, I've been, with bowls and handheld things, but also doing a lot more study on the frequencies. Now, I know that you play a range of ancient instruments. Now, the first question is, why have you gone for all the ancient type of instruments?
Yeah, look,
You know, is it because of the ancient? You think that there's a message in the ancient instruments more so than the ones that are manufactured in the Western world today?
Yeah, look, I think instruments that have a ceremonial creation, I think, are very different to something that's just mass produced, you know. And I think things like the sitar, you know, I've got a sitar just sitting here. But you know, all the work, you know, everything is handmade. All the tuning pegs,
Beautiful.
individually.
Can you give us a little demo on that?
Sure.
Are you going to bring this down to the expo? Are the people going to hear you play this one?
Things, yeah.
Wow, I mean the frequency of those notes, Julian. I mean, there's a certain ringing right through it, no matter what note you're playing. But there's a magical ring through that whole sound. It's very
Yeah.
powerful.
The sympathetic strings. So you've got the primary strings on the top, and then all these that are underneath.
And how are they tuned? Are they tuned like, I mean, how many, is it like the normal guitar tuning?
So they're tuned a bit. It's more like open tuning.
Oh wow, that's not an easy thing to do sometimes.
Yeah. So, and then another instrument I'll show you again is something called a soir mandal.
Where's that one? Actually, where's the other? The first one comes from where? The first one you just played.
Yeah, so from India.
Okay, and now this one here.
And this is also from India.
Yeah, it's not as intense as the first one.
Yeah,
The first one's quite a bit more intense, isn't it? It cuts right through. This one's more subtle.
yeah.
And what else you got? Entertain me.
Okay. So let's see. I've got a beautiful hand pan here. So this is
Now, where does that originate? I know the first one came from Germany, I think, because were they German?
Switzerland, from Bern in Switzerland. So late 90s, a couple in Bern, Switzerland, created these. So
Beautiful.
basically, it's a convex steel drum. So
Yeah.
you've seen Caribbean steel drums that are concave, and I think that's where the sort of, you know, the type of steel drum came from originally. But they created this where it's, you know, two parts joined
What a
together.
beautiful drum.
Yeah.
beautiful. You can just fall asleep listening to that one. That's really nice.
And something that's a bit different is
I haven't seen that one. That's a new one. Trust you, God. Where's that one come from?
this is from the States actually,
All right.
and it's interesting because at a certain point I was like, okay, that's it, no more instruments, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've given up on that idea.
Ah, that's beautiful. And so what's that called, that one?
I'm not sure what the actual name of this is. I mean, I suppose it's like a type
Xylophone, is it?
of xylophone, but it's really beautiful. Yeah, so these got a really nice sound.
Beautiful. So these people at the expo are going to be for quite a bit of a treat with all these different instruments.
Yeah.
Amazing. And what's your favourite didge at the moment? Which one have you been playing the most?
Well, I'll show you one that I really like. Actually, one of the original Yadakis. So
Yeah, very fine at the top, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. I love all the curves.
Yeah. So this has got a really nice sound, and this was made by the same family, the Yadaki master I mentioned.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little demo.
Yeah, that'd be great. Wow, that is awesome. That's so good. Yeah, and I must admit, over the years I've known you and heard you play here and there, your playing is just amazing, really amazing. Sounds so good, so good.
Thanks.
And it's good to see you. I can see that you're really starting to. It's taken you all these years to really get out there, which is kind of. Well, it's amazing because it shows your perseverance as well. I mean, you never gave up.
Yeah.
And that's so important in today's society, is you don't just give up because it didn't work the first time, you know what I mean? Or it didn't work for so many years. If you're passionate about something, which you are, is to continue on with it. And it's starting to actually come out now because you're also part of an incredible group. And you've actually travelled with them overseas. And Coda?
Yeah, so we haven't travelled overseas
You
yet.
haven't gone overseas yet. But you would. There was something in the sidelines there talking about it, or
Yeah, there's a potential European tour.
yeah.
But yeah, we're mixing ancient instruments with symphony orchestra.
I know, it's beautiful.
We've tuned the whole orchestra, because it's a string orchestra, to 432 hertz tuning calibration. Doesn't mean that the whole thing's in 432 hertz, which is just the note of A. It's just the way of measuring music. So it's all the different notes, just like normal music, but 8 beats per cycle, 8 cycles per second, slower than standard tuning of 440 hertz, which they say is more compatible to the
When you come here and I see you, I want you to really get into explaining that to me, because the tuning thing is, I only know how to tune a guitar, and I need to know a little bit more about the 432, and there's also 528, is it? 528 is another one.
528 is one of the frequencies. It's for DNA repair, healing, and miracles. It's what they give newborns who have potentially got DNA damage. They have that particular frequency, and it helps to repair the DNA when the baby is very young. So they're using it in science to correct DNA damage so that it doesn't manifest as a disease or an illness. So yeah, it's the science of sound healing is very interesting, and what I'd say, just the most important part of the way sound healing works is the stimulation of our nervous system in a positive way to encourage the parasympathetic nervous response. So I've been involved in a lot of studies, and
it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, and that vibration.
People don't realise. People just don't realise that they're actually stressed. They don't. And I'm one many years ago that said, "No, I'm not stressed."
Yeah.
Until I had a panic attack, and then I thought it must. Well, and even then I denied it. No, that's not a panic attack. It's something else. And it wasn't. There was actually a panic attack, and I had to face that and actually heal myself in those sort of ways. The spiritual realm helped me with that tremendously, and that's basically how I live my life now. But I know that the nervous system it's the catalyst for all diseases. Yeah. I really, really believe it. I've seen it. And I've also seen people go through sound, through breath, and actually heal spontaneously because they've allowed it in. And we all know that if you get a dish of water and stick it in front of a speaker, that the vibrations will move the water, and we're 80% plus of liquid in our body. So the sound is going to go in there and actually move and enhance and heal or stimulate what needs to be stimulated or healed.
Yeah, so it's basically one resonant frequency or resonant body, like say one of your crystal bowls. So then that's creating a resonant vibration. The human body, all the different nerve ending centers, the chakras, all have their own specific vibration. So I know you've got a whole set for the different chakras. So each frequency will target and resonate with the frequencies that are held in that particular region in the body. It will work like ultrasound to massage, to smooth and to calm those nerve endings. So that chakra can then come back into its own natural harmony and balance.
It's what I have found, which was really interesting, because I like using my handheld bowls, is say I'm using the heart center, and I actually start playing that. When I go over people, it's really interesting. That includes all the other ones as well. Certain people, the sound will actually change over certain people. That is a real telltale sign that there's something going on in that particular area. Because you go to the next person and it's still the same bowl, but it vibrates differently. The vibration becomes different.
Yeah, because it's a conversation between one vibration and another vibration, and they're informing each other. And that vibration is reminding that other vibration of what its essential, resting harmonic signature is. So it's informing the cells, it's informing the nervous system, and then there's adjustments that happen as part of that adjustment. If someone's really lacking if someone's very depleted in that chakra, they'll be drawing in the sound. Have you noticed that sometimes when you're playing over someone, it's like, what's going on? It's just not playing?
I have. And I couldn't work out why. Yeah.
It's literally sucking, like osmosis. it's if a chakra is really depleted, it will pull that energy out of, it is so hungry for it to homeostasis. And sometimes you have to ting it, or something, just to change the and clear it.
Yeah, to clear it. And then what about the didge? Does the didge also have a different vibration over different? It does. It's the same thing.
It's a diagnostic tool. The didgeridoo and tuning forks in a similar way. The didgeridoo is like a giant tuning fork, so you'll get a sense of, when you're playing over someone, you'll get feedback in real time to give you an idea of where that sound, needs to go. Sometimes you need to pull back, sometimes you need to come forward. It really depends on each person.
Yeah.
So you get information, and that helps you to understand what's needed and where the sound needs to go in order for it to do its.
Yeah.
But something that is really interesting is with sound healing and the use of sound is the stimulation of the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve supplies all the major organs and glands of the body, and also the chakras. The only thing that's not supplied by the vagus nerve is the adrenal glands. So that needs to be worked with differently. The vagus nerve, the stimulation points are the heart, the solar plexus, around the throat area. And once that's stimulated through that sound and vibration, then that gets energy and circulation and blood flow through the nervous system, cleansing, calming, soothing, rebalancing, and stimulating the parasympathetic relaxation response.
And, a lot of people, that after you've done a session with them and they're waking up, coming to, you can see it's almost as if you've just knocked on their door, walked into the house, into the bedroom, and they've just woken up. Is that you can actually see it in them that they've gone somewhere so deep and they are so relaxed. And they usually leave in a bit of a daze as well, because it's still there. I mean, it really does work on the nervous system in a big way. And people just think, I don't know what they think, but there seems to be like, I'll just go to a sound session and, and just enjoy the music. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. It's healing. And, and I know that we're all looking forward to you being here at the Yelling Up Wellness Expo on the 27th of October. And you're going to be at the Yelling Up Hall from 5:30 to 7. And Dave and I will be joining you there for our little tiny bits and pieces to assist you in any way we can. And I mean, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be really exciting, and I'm pretty sure the Southwest is. Well, I know a lot of people already know you because they've gone, oh, Julian's coming. It's great, bang, and they've gone straight in and bought tickets. So yeah, they don't want to miss out because they are limited. So yeah, thanks so much for coming online and having this discussion, because it's been a great discussion, Julian. I know we could probably keep going for another hour because there's so much to discuss, but I'm looking forward to seeing you down south, and yeah, all the very best on your journey.
Thank you. Yeah, very much look forward to be down there in that beautiful part of the world. Wadandi country, and it's just the most stunning area. The natural beauty is so special, and the people are so special, and just that being fed by the goodness of that place energetically.
The land's magical. It's paradise.
Water is just I don't get down there enough, but
No, well, you're busy now.
I've lived down there a few times and absolutely love it. And very much look forward to coming down, being with community and supporting some of these projects,
Oh yeah, I mean, having you support the community here is a beautiful thing, and we can't be any more grateful than what we are. Maybe we could be more grateful because you are an amazing person to come down and do this for the Yelling Up Wellness Expo.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and we look forward to your company in our next episode, In Body, In Mind.